Brother Howard here, going to take you end to end through the process of creating our magazine, Stratezine, which is a magazine podcast that's geared particularly towards students studying digital and social media and practitioners who are early in the field. So let's get started. First off, let's go right to Canvas. We've got the team assignments, which we've made, and let me go there, open that up. So in the team assignments, that's going to rotate from each of the three podcasts that we'll do. But you see here in podcast number 1, for group number 1 and group number 2, Annalise and Grace have the assignment to be hosts and also help with the person on the street interviews. You see that Maddie and Lindsay are also hosting, and they're responsible for finding and conducting the interview and helping with the podcast rundown. So you can see your assignments there. So each person has an assignment that when we put them all together will turn into a magazine episode for our podcast. So let's go to the next one. One thing I'll have you turn in is your podcast topics. So let me open that one up. Close this one, open up the podcast topics. So this has to be something to do with digital and social media marketing, the whole career, what we're studying. So find a topic, and many of you have been brainstorming this one, and you'll share what that is. So once you have your topic, then let's go back here, and we have a rundown. Now you can make your rundown up before you create any of these other things. The rundown is simply to help you produce your podcast show. So the rundown will be the same for every show, just the content will change. We'll have a show open that will be preset. You don't have to do anything with that. This is the hosts on camera, and this is going to correspond directly with a script for the hosts for what they need to say when they're introducing all the different segments. So study this, and the only thing they really need to change on this one are some of the graphics, some names that will be in StreamYard, and the times as you adjust your times. So the goal is to make this podcast about 15 minutes, give or take a few minutes. So that's our goal. Okay, that's the podcast rundown. So let's close that one down. And you'll see down here on the bottom is a podcast host script. So the host script, very similar. It's going to follow the same role. The only difference in the podcast host script is that now it's going to have everything that the hosts are going to say. So here's the show open. Here's the intro. So you'll write what you want to say to introduce the segments, the question of the day, the person on the street interviews. So this is up to the two hosts to decide what you want to say, but you're going to also correspond closely with the people creating the segments so you know what they're all about. What are the tips and tools all about? What is the interview about, which you're going to be doing anyway. Okay, so that's that part. So let's go back. So now our next part is the person on the street video and script. Now there's not much of a script here. What you'll need to do is come up with your question based on your topic that you can go out and talk to people on campus, probably 5, 6, or 7 people. And this is not scientific. This is designed to help you get a gauge of what people are talking about. And it also brings the show to life a little bit if we can actually ask people questions about what we're trying to do research on. So you're going to get much more in depth with the interview and with the segment that introduces the interview. But this is kind of fun to get out and talk to people to find out what they're thinking. So this script, what you'll have is the question you're going to ask, where you're going to go. This has a set open so you can say this, so you don't have to figure out what you're going to say when you open up your segment. Definitely get all the names of the people you interview. We probably won't put those names on camera, but we just need to know who they are. And then I have a close for you so you can know what to say when you close up your segment, so you're not figuring out what to say. Okay, that's the person on the street. Okay, the next part is the segment topic script. And so in this one, this is the one where you're going to introduce your topic, whatever it happens to be. Okay, and so this takes some research. You're going to dig, find some great resources. Whoever's in charge of this is going to write out their script and record it with their favorite video editing software and edit in some visuals, and I've shown you some examples of what that should look like. So this is going to really introduce the topic of your discussion before we get to the interview. Which we get to the next part is the interview. So the podcast number 1 interview on this one, what you'll turn in is the name of the person you're going to interview. And then here's an open for you to say as you're introducing your interview. Then put down the questions. You can put down more questions. You don't have to ask all of them, but you should have a pretty good idea of what you're going to ask. So put down as many questions as you feel like. Again, this interview is probably going to be between 5 and 8 minutes long, tops. So you don't want to have too many questions. At the same time, you don't want to have too few. So be prepared. And then this gives you a close, so how you can close out of your interview when you finish your interview for Stratezine. Okay, that's the interview segment. Then we actually, you all have done the interview. When we come out of the interview, we're going to do a tips and tools. The goal of this is to teach our persona something that's of interest to them. It could be how to use a piece of software. It could be something that's new going on into the industry, whatever it happens to be, but it needs to be you as the person who's producing it, voicing it. You're going to record it. You're going to have some nice visuals to demonstrate what it is that you're doing, and I've given you several examples of that as well. It's great if it can correspond directly to your topic, but that isn't always going to work out. So you need to find something that you think would be interesting, that's not something so commonly known that it would be something that people wouldn't be interested in. So something new and interesting that you can share. Okay, now we've done all these. There's one other I want to share with you, the promos and strategy. This one is for after you've produced your Stratezine news magazine. I'll have each of your group plan a strategy to promote your podcast. So you want to use your own social media accounts to promote once this gets on YouTube, to get people to go and watch it. Okay, so you can look at that a little bit more later. Okay, so that's the big deal. Now there is 2 groups that have 5 in them, and for those that have 5, group member number 5 is going to do an interesting news update. And so on this one, it looks just like the other scripts. In this one, though, your focus is to be about something that's currently going on in the digital and social media industry. Great example right now would be the great turmoil over TikTok. It could be anything that's going on, maybe some new algorithms going on, some company that's got some new product. So there's some new thing going on within the industry. So that's only for the couple of groups who have 5 in them. The other groups don't have to worry about that one. Okay, so once you've got all this turned in or finished, you'll turn in your videos here. So for example, your podcast number 1 segment topic video, the person who did that, just the one person who did that, you don't have to have everybody in your group do that. Then you come here and submit a link to it, and I'm going to have you host all of your content on a Google Drive. So what you need to do is make sure you have one and make sure everyone's content from your group gets into that Google Drive. So let me go here and I'll show you. I created a Google Drive folder for an example. So here's Stratezine group number 1. So if you're group number 1, make a folder on one of your Google Drives. So you'd open it up, and within that, so they say this is your first podcast. So here's the video, group 1 interview segment, group number 2 person on the street segment, group number 1 tips and tools. Then you'll see here's all these scripts that went there. You'll turn these in both here, and also you'll turn in all these things on Canvas. But make sure that you share them from your Google Drive, and as you share them, click on here and want to share them. Make sure that you make them not restricted, but make them anyone with the link. Copy the link and then go ahead and put that in Canvas. That way, anyone who's part of your team or who's organizing this on the other end, our technical support, can access your content. Once all that's done, that needs to be done by the Tuesday before your podcast was recorded, which we record on Fridays. So for this one, then our groups number 1 and 2 will record on our first Friday when we record. You'll have turned in a template, which I will give to you. It looks just like this. It is a Google Slides template. And we have an open that will be in here, which you don't have to do anything about. Just make sure you make a copy of the template. We'll have your question of the day. Then you'll change this out to whatever that is. You'll post the first video here, which is you, the person on the street. Post this a placeholder between every one of your segments so we can change and have time to go to the next segment. So the next segment would be your introductory segment that's going to introduce your topic, so the topic segment, and make sure you put that video in here, make it full screen. Okay, then up another placeholder. After that is going to be the tips and tools, the interview segment, where you recorded your interview. That will play, another placeholder. This segment is the tips and tools. So the way we have that set up, as we advance the slides, your video will automatically start. So that will be running out of StreamYard. Okay, another placeholder. Then at this point, we get the answer to our question of the day. So we made everybody wait until the end to answer the question. Then in the next spot, this would be where we would promo the next episode. So we need to say something about the next group's episode that will be recorded. So we need to work with them to give some insights into what that will be. Then at the very end, we have our attributions, show notes. So any of the sources we drew from, we need to make sure we put those in here, and there'll be some music playing as the show closes. Okay, that is an overview of what we're doing. We'll do that 3 times. Each time we do a new podcast, you'll get new assignments from your group, and I will have those listed. So just like we have team assignments for podcast number 1 here in your assignment, we'll rotate through it. I'll have that available for podcast number 2 and podcast number 3. I hope that helps to see a big picture of what we're doing. So we'll take all your individual pieces that you're putting together as a group, and we'll make them into a one show. And just remember, as you go through these modules where you're turning in your assignments, as individuals, you just turn in the one you're assigned, and you'll see a lot of empty spaces in the gradebook. Don't worry about that. Just to make it all function, then I have a lot of assignments here, but you're only responsible for the particular assignment you've been given for your podcast. So don't worry about all the other ones. The only one you'll have to worry about as a group is your topics, and one person in your group needs to turn in the topic that you're working on. Thanks for listening. Hopefully that helps. Let me know if you have any questions.